All right, let's kick things off. Welcome, everybody. We're going to wait just another minute or so as you all start to trickle in. We appreciate you all for joining us here for our July edition of our Trout Routes 101 Masterclass. As I mentioned, we'll wait just a minute to let everybody pour in. We'll go over a quick couple housekeeping items and we'll get things rolling as we're going to try to keep it to an hour tonight. And I am without customer experience help. So we're going to try to keep things not quick, but kind of short and brief in terms of we're going to go through things fairly quickly, not dive super deep into any one thing specifically tonight, trying to save as much time as we can for those questions. As I mentioned, I won't have that customer experience help being able to answer questions throughout class. So I want to make sure we can save as much time as possible to get through all of those. So don't hesitate to drop those questions into that Q&A section. And without any further ado, we will kick things off. So let me go ahead and quickly share this screen with you all. Again, welcome to our July 101 Trout Routes Masterclass. We're super excited to have you all, whether you are a current pro user, a current basic user, a brand new user, a user who's been with us for a long time, whatever you might be, we're excited to have you here and we're excited to walk through the app with you tonight. As I mentioned, just a couple quick housekeeping items. Number one, your video and sound are off. So whether you've got kids running around in the background, dogs barking, whatever it might be, we can't see you, we can't hear you, so no need to worry there. With that though, to be able to kind of involve yourself in tonight's class, we do have two different sections that you can find in the Zoom meeting. That's going to be the Q&A section and the chat section. As I mentioned, I don't have that help with me tonight from the customer experience team. So I am going to be trying to handle any of those questions that come in. We'll try to take a break mid going through things, but again, we're going to try to go through things in good time tonight and leave plenty of time to answer those questions at the end. So don't hesitate to drop those questions in that Q&A section. That'll help me keep those all kind of squared away there when I go to look for them here shortly. And then use that chat to chime in where you're joining us from, find a new fishing buddy, whatever it might be. We'd love to hear that every time. One thing before that we jump in, I did want to give a couple of exciting updates. One thing that we do have coming that we're really excited about, our cartography team, excuse me, has been working hard on refreshing the map and giving it a little bit more of that Onyx look and feel, just kind of simplifying the ease of use. And so we've had some really exciting developments and things like that that our cartography team has been working on that we're hoping to bring to you here in the next couple of weeks. So keep an eye out for that. Shouldn't change the way that the map looks too much. It really should just simplify things a little bit and honestly make it a much better user experience, especially when you're searching through the map and it can get a little bit clustered with all the different waterways. So we're hoping to simplify that user experience, make it a little bit more streamlined, and hopefully make the map easier to read. All right, moving right along here. Tonight's agenda, what are we going to cover? First, we're going to talk about membership options. Again, as I mentioned, whether you're coming in tonight as a paid member, whether you're on that pro, that nationwide program, or we've got our single state that we just rolled out in May, or if you're joining us as a basic member and just want to know what the app is about, or want to know what you can get if you upgrade to that single state or pro option. We'll talk about all of that. We'll talk about map layers. Map layers, that's going to be kind of where we start diving into all of the goodness that you get when you do upgrade to that single state or pro version. And so with that, we're going to learn how to navigate around the map so you can get the most use out of it, whether you're looking around in your state and your backyard for water, or you're planning a trip outside of those state lines. Map icons and stream card. This is again where the map really starts to become super useful and super powerful with all of the different icons, whether it's campsites you're looking for, trailheads, general access icons, fly shops. We'll go through all of that. The stream card also, again, that's going to be something that every time you tap onto a new stream, any waterway that you see highlighted on the map, that's going to pull up that waterway's stream card. We'll dive into that a little bit and learn what you can learn from the stream card and how that can help empower you. Stream gauges. This might be my personal favorite part of the entire app. I know I check almost every time before I go out my favorite river gauges and check what the water's doing, what it's been like lately, where it is compared to normal, and we'll show you how to do that tonight. Offline maps and custom map content. This is where you can really start making the map your own. For those of you who don't know, we don't rely on any crowdsourced data to build out the map. So anything you do within your map in terms of creating custom content, dropping markers, things like that, only going to be ever saved to your profile, as well as those offline maps. We know a lot of the best fishing doesn't happen where you have cell service. So we'll dive in and show you how to do all of those offline maps as well. Couldn't drink enough water apparently to keep the tickle out of my throat tonight. All right. Next one is my location, river miles, and tutorials. Those are going to be those three buttons along the right-hand side of the screen. As you dive in, my location, that's going to be pretty obvious, but we'll dive into those river miles and those tutorials, figure out how you can harness some of the information that we've got there. And then finally, before that we jump into Q&A, we'll just jump over to the web maps side of things. A lot of the times anglers are really familiar with the mobile version of the app, whether they're accessing on their iPad or their phone, but we do have a web-based map as well, which I personally love to use just for screen real estate reasons, if I'm planning out a trip, things like that. So we'll dive into that and make sure everyone knows how to access that one. All right, let's see here. Let me go ahead and switch over to my iPad. For those of you who haven't joined us before, we do typically use the iPad to share. It is, if you're using it on your iOS device, it is going to look very much the same, just with a little bit bigger screen real estate here. Again, I like using either my desktop or the iPad is nice too if I'm sitting on the couch, just tootling around, exploring water, dropping waypoints, things like that. And we'll show what you should definitely do in terms of downloading offline maps. That one you'll need to do device specifically, but we'll jump into that more in a little bit. All right. So now that we've got the app open, let's chat a little bit about those membership options like I mentioned. You can see here, the map is pretty colorful. For those of you who are basic members, you're probably like, that looks a little bit different than what I see when I open up the app. That's because we are on the pro version here. This is going to look very similar whether you have our Pro, our nationwide version, or this new single state option. You're going to be able to harness all of that proprietary classification data. You're going to have access points. You're going to get all those fly shops, campgrounds, trailheads, all of that information that we'll dive deeper into is going to be harnessed with both of those, that Pro and that single state membership. If we do want to back down to see what those basic users are seeing, you can see I'll even get rid of this public lands as you don't have access to that on basic either. With the basic version of the app, it is a powerful tool if you are just looking to understand where trout live and where trout water is. If you are taking a trip across country and you want to simply be able to drive over a river and know, is there trout in that river or not? Basic is going to be able to answer that question for you. It's not going to be able to help you out with where are those public versus private land boundaries, where are the public access points, things like that. But it is going to be able to help you just answer that very basic question of, are there trout in that water? If I try to fish it, do I have the chance of catching a trout? Once you upgrade to that Pro or that single state version, you are going to get access to all of our different map modes. Within that, the one that's auto-selected and that you're going to jump into once you start a trial, or the one that we also like to call the most powerful map mode in the app, is going to be that guide mode. Again, that's going to add a ton of color here to the map, as you can see. And if we jump into the map legend, you can see that starts to color those waterways by, again, that proprietary classification. We'll dive into that a little bit more once we jump into the stream card. But that's going to be your gold medal, class 1, class 2, and class 3 classifications that we can see, again, colored separately across the map. As we start diving into those waterways, you can start to learn more again. That's going to bring up what we call a stream card. We'll do that here in a minute. But this is just going to give you a sense of what the map's going to look like with each of those map modes. All right. I'm gonna actually zoom in a little bit here and add those public lands back because you can see that is going to add a ton of value as we start to get into things here. And you can see we start to get some of those changes within the reservation lands, the national park lands, things like that. And that's all going to be on that guide mode. Those other map modes that you have access to once you upgrade are going to be access and regulations. That access mode is going to be as it sounds. It's going to help you kind of understand and parse through the different types of access, the different types of public lands, and if there are any easements on any of the waterways near you. Again, easements are something that we see a little bit more typically in the Midwest in terms of farm owners. Um, Giving easements to anglers specifically to fish on private lands. They do happen out west, just not necessarily as often. So one of the big things in terms of the access layer out west specifically, if that's what we're looking at, is going to be understanding those different public lands, and being able to start understanding the management agency and things like that, especially if we start clicking into them. You can see we can understand U.S. Forest Service, Forest Service land, BLM land, things like that. So that's going to be what that access mode is going to be most used for. And then the third one, regulations. Just as it sounds, it's going to help you start to break down some of those regulations. As we know, from state to state, from waterway to waterway, watershed to watershed, even, those regulations can change. And this can be a starting point to start to try to understand some of those different regulations. And within the stream card, which we'll again show here shortly, you can start to dive into some of those regulations a little bit further using links that'll take you straight to your state databases and things like that. But again, that map legend is going to start to help you understand those state by state regulations. If we hovered over a different state, you'd be able to see those specific state regulations pop up and populate there. Awesome. So that's going to cover those map layers. Again, that guide mode is going to be really kind of for the stream ratings if you're using that guide mode here. I typically like to use this one. It's a little bit easier to read through, gives you that really quick, easy understanding of the classification of the river, which is usually the easiest place to start for most people. But the access mode is great, whether you're looking again for easement land, state versus national park lands, or just any of those general public lands, and learning to understand where they are, what the management agency is as you start to click into them now that we've got some of that more rich information thanks to the Onyx data. And then the regulations layer, again, it's going to be that state by state. It's going to help you kind of quickly understand and then be able to dig deeper and find more information on any of those specific regulations that you might be dealing with. Within the map layers tab then here down along the bottom side all the way to the left, we do also have the ability to not just jump from map mode to map mode, but jump from the base maps. And so right now we have been taking a look at that roads base map. This is again the one that's going to be on by default. Also the one that I typically like to use the most. You get the best contrast I tend to find. But if you like to view your maps in topo or using satellite, we do have both of those layers available as well, so you can dig into those. Sometimes that satellite is nice, especially if you turn off those public lands. You can really start to dive in. Sometimes, depending on the resolution in the area that you're looking, you can even start to pinpoint certain pools or certain riffles and things like that, which can start to get really powerful. So that's a nice utilization of that satellite mode. One of the other things we can do within this map layers tab here is jump from 2D to 3D maps. You know, this is one definitely use more out west than I do here in the Midwest, I will say. But anytime I'm going out west, I typically will take a look using that 3D maps. I'll kind of get into an area that I want to explore, and I can start to understand, okay, how does that all lay out? Where do those rivers go up? Where does the hike get strenuous? Things like that. We will show you another way to be able to kind of do that within the stream card, but 3D maps can be a really powerful way to start viewing those landscapes just a little bit differently. Awesome. So the next thing that we're going to jump into as we keep moving things along here, we'll take a break to answer any questions that have come in here pretty shortly. We'll kind of take a mid-class break, so to speak. But again, we're keeping things moving along so we can answer as many of those questions as you have. So don't be afraid to throw any situations out if you're going out this summer and you want to know how you would best use the app in a certain situation or any of those general questions. That's what we're going to be focusing on tonight. So keep them coming in. All right, so the next thing is navigating the map. As you can see, I've been moving around the map here a little bit. How have I been doing that? It's going to be your standard for those of you who are, I'm sure, familiar with plenty of other mapping applications. It's going to be that standard kind of scroll, pinch to zoom. But the one thing I do want to call out as we're navigating is going to be within 3D maps. How do you change your view on 3D maps? That's going to be the good old two-finger swipe. So we're going to at the same time, we're going to take our both of our fingers, lay them on the screen, and we are going to either push down or push up depending on which way and how we want to change our view. So sometimes the 3D maps can get a little bit wonky when you're kind of scooting them around. Sometimes you get a little bit frustrated with why can't I get the view I want? The two fingers swipe and moving around, that's going to be the play for you. All right, let's go back to that 2D maps and we'll continue to show. We can just pinch around, pinch and zoom. It is fairly easy to get around the map. If you do have issues, let me know. We can definitely run through any of them, but it's a lot of tapping, a lot of pinching and zooming to get into the areas you want to look at, things like that. So that's going to be how we start navigating the map. With that, we can navigate the map other ways as well. We've got our search bar obviously there up top. With the search bar, one thing I do always want to call out is going to be the state selector as well. So you can see right below that search bar, up along the top of the left-hand side, we see that state selector. This is going to give us the ability to select any state where Trout Routes has data within the lower 48 there in our covered area. And we can select that, and using that box, we can jump straight to that state. Again, pretty simple, pretty easy understanding of how that state selector works. But the one thing I want to call out when talking about search with the selector in mind is that when you are utilizing the search function, it is going to be powered by the state selected. So right now we have Iowa as the state selected. We jumped to Iowa really quick and easy. But say I want to start searching in Colorado for Bear Creek. As we know, there's dozens and dozens of bear creeks, even within single states. Oftentimes there's plenty of bear creeks, right? So if I start searching for Bear Creek, hopefully the search will follow me here. All right, let's stop my share, refresh the app. Looks like search didn't want to play nice there. We'll refresh the app and give it another try. There we go. All right, let me reshare that screen as it, of course, is working the second time I try. All right. So as you can see, we started searching for Bear Creek. And so really quickly, you can see that Iowa is the first state that's being populated, and then we get everywhere else. I'm not looking for Bear Creek in Iowa. I'm looking for Bear Creek in Colorado. So I can very quickly tell the search bar that I want to look in Colorado, not in Iowa, for Bear Creek. And using that, I can then dive in and start looking for Bear Creek in Colorado, and it will populate Colorado before it starts to populate anywhere else. So again, just a really quick, easy way to start moving around the map. But that is one thing, if you are going to use the search tool instead of just panning around, going from state to state like this, if you are going to use that search tool, make sure you've got that state selected in which you're looking to search for. All right, we're going to jump back to the west here. We'll actually move back up here into Montana. All right, and as you can see, as we're zooming in and out, we're getting those different levels of detail. Again, that's going to be something with this new cartography update that we have coming that we're going to clean up even more. So as you get to those different zoom levels, icons will change size, and it'll just be a little bit more user friendly to be able to see the information that you want to see well zoomed out and not get things too cluttered. So some of those finer details, some of those smaller icons, things like that will be a little bit more hidden and you'll need to zoom in a little bit further, but we'll cover that in probably next month's class or something like that. So, all right, so that kind of covers navigating the map again, either scrolling around, pinching and zooming, or utilizing that search function in uh, in in kind of side by side with that state selector. So awesome. So the next thing I want to jump into is the map icons and finally start jumping into some water. So the way we're going to do this is I want to quickly open up the filters app, as this is sometimes the best way to show off all of the different icons within the map, as well as make sure everybody knows that if you don't want to see trailheads, if you don't want to see campgrounds, if that stuff doesn't matter to you, you're never going to go camping. You don't want to start at a trailhead because you don't want to be uh, get into the water alongside hikers, whatever it might be, whatever experience you are looking to have, you can really start to tailor that utilizing this filters section. So the filters and map settings is going to be the area to come to be able to help you kind of start to see and start to harness the information that you want in the way that you want to view it. So before we jump into any of these other map settings, I want to run through the icons that you're seeing. The main icon within the app that you'll see all around is going to be that blue fish icon. This is going to be one that's not going to change with the cartography update. So I'll let you know that the blue fish is going to stay core to finding public access with trout routes. That is going to be your general access icon. That's going to be a place where you can at least park, probably get into the water fairly easily, might have a little bit of a hike, but that's going to be those designated general access points. So if you're just starting out, you're just looking to find out, okay, I just bought a rod and I just want to hit some water. Where can I do so safely and responsibly? Those general public access points, those blue fish icons are going to be a great place to start poking around and exploring. As you know, you can definitely safely, responsibly at least get in the water there. Again, depending on your state stream bed laws, you might need to make sure you know where you're going. But thankfully, you have a tool in your hands to be able to do that, which we'll dive into here as we jump into the stream card. Parking, general parking, that's going to be an icon that you'll see across the map. Again, this one can start to clutter things a little bit, so it's definitely one that you can turn off at times. I tend to find if I'm fishing in more urban areas, things like that, some of those general parking spots do tend to get a little bit cluttered and a little bit crowded, sometimes make it a little bit hard to try to find the water that I'm looking for. So again, always super easy to just jump into this, the filters and map settings, and just deselect it and it won't be shown on your map. Camping trailheads, as we mentioned, these are going to be some of those icons that just add more rich data to the map. You might not be utilizing them on every trip, but if you are out on a trip and you end up on the water too late and you can't make it to the campground you thought you were going to make it to, Trout Route's going to be can be a tool for you to be able to open the app and find a campground to post up closer by or even on the same river, wherever it might be. Those campgrounds have come, I know, in handy for a lot of people like myself when exploring out west, and you end up on the water longer than you think you might. That's that last cast never ends up being the last cast, right? I'm sure we all know that problem. Boat ramps. This is one. So we do know that in terms of the Trout Routes user base, it is heavily walk and wade anglers. But with that, we do know we have a bunch of people who love to put their drift boat or their raft down the river. And we've got a lot of different tools that can help out those anglers as well. Obviously, one of the main ones being understanding where can I put my boat in. So that's going to be that boat ramps icon. Again, another one if you don't have a boat or you're not looking to plan that type of trip at this time and you're looking specifically to plan a walk and wade trip, you can always turn off that icon and won't have to see it. The next couple that we'll jump into here are going to get into our kind of more advanced filters, we like to call them. And so this is going to be the dams icon. And this is one where we can select whether we want to hide all, show them when the stream is selected only, or show them at all times. Again, this is one that can, especially out west, start to clutter your app a little bit. And so we do have the standard selection as being stream only. So when you select the stream will be when you see the dam icon. Habitat project, again, this is going to be another one that is going to be either hide, stream only, or show all times. Habitat project, most of those are going to be plugged in from TU. So any of those Trout Unlimited habitat projects, a lot of times focusing on adding bank restoration or just adding better surface, or adding bottom surface to the river and things like that. So any of those projects, sometimes there's more data than others. Sometimes there's the species that they were focusing on with those restoration projects, all kinds of information that you can sometimes harness in there, depending on what we've been able to pull in from the Trout Unlimited folks. Trout stocking. This is again another one that we're pulling from a few different databases, and so the level of information and the richness of the data can vary from state to state. But this is again one where you can either hide, have them shown when the stream is selected, or show them all the time. But trout stocking is going to be just as it sounds. These are going to be stocking locations. We're not going to have updated stocking schedules within these stocking locations, but it will just let you know whether there A has historically been trout stocked there, or B if it is a current stocking location. You'll be able to see either of those using this icon. The next one, which is off by nature, again, just to try to not cause clutter to the app, is going to be Trout Lakes. This is one that I think a lot of people sleep on just because that we do have it turned off by nature there. With the Trout Lakes filter here, we can, with one tap, turn on an icon that will show. If I try to find, of course, if I try to find them, there won't be any within close range. I just needed to zoom in further. You can see anytime we have any of these stocked trout lakes, we will be able to see those blue icons. Again, this is going to be another one where if we actually click on the icon, it'll help. You can see sometimes what species has been stocked, sometimes when that stocking occurred, things like that. So that Trout Lakes is definitely one that I wouldn't sleep on during the summer as those rivers are warming up. This can be a great tool to start exploring some of those alpine lakes and things like that to break away from that heat. Awesome. The next one, fly shops. Again, this is one of the core portions of the app. We certainly want to help people have DIY adventures and help them understand where they can safely and responsibly access water. But we understand that fly shops are the backbone of the fly fishing industry and the fishing industry in general. And so they harness a lot of information that you can't get in the app, right? And so we have all of the fly shops around the country. We like to hang our hat on that, shown within the app. So whether you are heading to a new area and you need some local intel, or you're out on the water and you run out of tippet or you run out of your favorite fly, whatever it might be, you can find the closest fly shop to you, and we'll show you in the stream card a really quick and easy way to do that. The next one down here is going to be, again, stream gauges. This is going to be one that has that advanced filter, but this advanced filter is a little bit different. Instead of having either hide, show when the stream is selected, or show all the time, this one is going to have the type of water that it is shown on. So obviously trout routes, focusing on trout specifically. But as we know, there are gauges across warm water rivers, cold water rivers, all different kinds of rivers. And so one of the ways that we've tried to declutter the app a little bit for the trout specific angler is give them the option to have just the gauges shown on trout water. So we have had some people who are like, whoa, my favorite gauge is no longer shown in the app. Why might that be? This is usually where I will say most users need to go to correct that problem. I typically like to see all of those gauges, whether I'm on a trout mission or I'm using the app for a small bass mission, whatever it might be. So I personally like to have all gauges shown, and so I will have that show all selected. But if you are just looking to have it on trout water, Again, to declutter a little bit for yourself, you can have that selected as well. Tributary boundaries. This is going to be for mainly the North Shore of Minnesota, where we've historically done the majority of our tributary work. It's definitely something that we're looking to hopefully develop in the future for some of those western states, those eastern states. I know we've done a little bit of Steelhead Alley for those folks over there, but we haven't explored the migratory side of things a ton. But for those migratory streams that we do have those tributary boundaries, especially along the North Shore of Minnesota there. So kind of understanding where some of those waterfalls are, things like that, and the sections of water that are navigable to fish. Getting down into here as we kind of dive into some more of those filters and map settings, we have the ability to turn on or off that county or state overlay. Again, this can help if you have some of those county specific regulations or things like that to help you piece yourself together on the map with some of those county specific regulations. Persistent settings. This is going to be one that I harp on all the time because we have people who will set the map the way they want, be super excited about it, and then they close the app and open it back up, and it completely resets to all of those kind of standard settings that we've chosen. And they go, "What the heck? I had the app exactly how I wanted it, and it reset." Persistent settings is going to be your friend. Persistent settings as well as lock filters enabled, those two in conjunction are going to be your friend whether you have, depending on no matter what map mode you have open and no matter whether you close out of the app or not. Once you have both of those selected and you select your settings, both closing the app as well as switching those map modes are going to keep those settings persistent for you. So that's one thing I definitely like to tell people to turn on right away, just so that they can make sure as they're setting the map up for themselves that it's staying that way in the long term. Snap to stream. This one is going to be, again, fairly simple to hopefully parse out. Snap to stream. This one's going to, when you click on a stream, it will either snap you and zoom you in, or it will keep you at the same zoom level that you have tapped it at. Again, it can sometimes disorient users when they tap on a stream at the zoom level they have chosen, and you take them and zoom them in pretty close. So we've given users the option to either be zoomed into that stream or stay at the persistent zoom setting that they have chosen. Google Map default. This is another one that we end up having to send users to fairly often. For those of you who don't know, again, it's something we'll dive into here. You can get directions directly from the Trout Routes app. By clicking on any of those icons that we just showed off, you can get directions directly to them. Those directions are either powered by Apple Maps or Google Maps, and the first time you go to get directions is when that you select which maps that you want to have set as your map that it jumps you to each time you go to get directions. There are times where people accidentally select Google Maps or they accidentally select Apple Maps and they say, I want to switch which maps are my default maps. This is going to be the toggle that you'll be able to go to. If that's toggled on, Google Maps will be the default that will populate when you click that get directions button. And then if we have that off, that will jump you into your Apple Maps, specifically if we're talking on the iOS device. All right, moving back up a little bit before that, we got to some of those main icons. We did miss a couple just below that public lands that we have toggled on and off. Again, depending on how you like to view the map. Sometimes this is a really quick and easy way to understand where those public versus private land boundaries are, but it can, with that green overlay, make it a little bit difficult to see if you're looking for that satellite layer or whatever it might be. So that's going to be toggleable there. But we also have these national and state park icons. We did see earlier that we see here that state and national park land is going to be very different looking. But if you do want to have that icon on there to be able to tell using the icon as well, you can toggle those on and off. Sometimes it makes finding those state parks a little bit easier, as those might not be as obvious based on the color shading of that section. The next one right above that is going to be bridges. This is going to be one specifically that as we jump into the stream card and the stream specifically, we'll talk a little bit more about, as that is going to be one that is only ever populated when you select the stream. Rare Waters Properties and Trout Unlimited events. These are going to be two of our different partnership icons that you can either learn more about Trout Unlimited events near you or start to explore some of those Rare Waters properties. For those of you who are not familiar, we partnered with Rare Waters last summer to start implementing all of those pieces of private water that are available to people to essentially on a kind of Airbnb style basis rent for a day, rent for a couple of days, whatever it might be, and explore some of those private waters as well as showing people the access to all the public water that they have as well. So, all right, and then moving up, this is going to get out of those icons, but into that map, still within that map personalization. Special filters, most popular only. If we select that, it's going to show you just the most popular waterways. Again, if you're just starting out or you're traveling to a new state and you just want to hit the big hitters in that state, this is going to be a really quick, easy way to get rid of all of that fluff, all of that other water, and just hone in on some of the what we call the most popular waterways in that area. The next is going to be, as I mentioned, those fishing easements only. This is going to be different types of easements depending on where you are in the US. A lot of the times, like I mentioned in the Midwest, it's farming land that's eased. We do see that out west often, but this is going to show you if there is any section of easement, this will highlight that waterway there. And then tailwaters only. Again, one that we typically see used more out west than we do out east, as there's not too many tailwaters here in the Midwest or out east. But with that, if you are looking specifically for winter fishing or to escape the heat as we get into the throes of summer here in July and into August, those tailwaters are a great place to go for consistent water flows and consistent temperatures, at least more consistent temperatures. And then right above that, obviously, we can see all of those different stream classes. So again, this is going to be where you can really start to harness the app. And I hope we have a couple questions coming in on ways to use it as the weather gets warmer and things like that, because this is one of those ways you can definitely start to do so. As I'm sure we've all seen, food allo restrictions are starting to happen all over the West. And it's on a lot of big water, right? A lot of that bigger water tends to get those first $2 restrictions. So one way we can start to explore, okay, what other water do we have to poke around? There's plenty of other water. Even if we remove those class ones and we start getting into what we call that blue lining, right? We see that there's still a ton of water on a ton of public land, all of that green shading that you can explore. And that's just in that tiny little area, right? So this is just showing you all of that small water. Most of the time is going to stay cooler. Obviously, you still want to temp all of that. This is going to be a lot of that smaller, cooler water that we can start to check out as the temps get warm. And you can really start to just hone in on that water by deselecting any of those waterways that you don't want to see. All right, enough about the icons and the filters. Let's talk about rivers. Let's talk about water. There's plenty of it on the map, right? So what happens when I click on any of these? That's going to bring up, as we mentioned, our stream card. Let's go ahead and click on the river. Looks like we clicked on Rock Creek here in Montana by happenstance. I love this one personally. Um, Definitely is a favorite of mine throughout the year. But what can we learn as we start to click into a waterway? That's going to bring up, as I mentioned, what we call the stream card. Within the stream card, hopefully we have our elevation chart here load soon. Within the stream card, we can learn a lot. We can not only learn the waterway name. I didn't know exactly what river we were clicking on. I probably could have remembered if I had looked that I had icons dropped there, but I didn't exactly remember what the name of the river was. So simply clicking on any of those waterways is going to help you learn what the river name is. Where is it? How far is it from me? And then we can start to dive into the rating. We can start to dive into all of those good, rich things that come from the stream card here. As we talked about when we talked about rating, it is a proprietary classification to trout routes. How do we learn more about that? Well, we can simply jump into that stream card, click on that stream rating, and we can start to see that breakdown of those different stream classes to understand what we're talking about when we are rating a stream, either gold medal, class one, class two, or class three. Also within the stream card here, man, loading times are not my friend today, apparently. Let's see if we can get the elevation chart on a different river. Maybe not. Well, we shall persevere, hey? For those of you at home, I hope you are following along. I hope you are clicking into the stream card, and I hope that that elevation and slope chart is populating there for you. With that, you should be able to click right along that elevation chart, and it should drop a pin right on the waterway that you can scrub along the chart and see that pin change. You can find not only plunge pools where dams are, you can see those pretty significant drops with the dams, obviously. But this is also another tool, as I mentioned when we were talking about 3D maps. This is another tool that you can use to understand how strenuous a hike might be or how strenuous a section of that river might be, just based on the slope and the elevation change that happens on that section. The next tab that we're going to go through within the stream card here is going to be local information. This is going to give you that general season guidance. It's also going to here highlight if it's a popular section, if it has an easement on it, and if it were a tailwater, that would be darkened as well. So that's going to be a really quick, easy way to understand some of those main characteristics. Special regulations. Again, as I mentioned earlier, within that regulations layer, you can start to understand some of those regulations, but within the stream card, you can really start to dive into those regulations a little bit further and understand them a little bit more. And we will see here shortly within the access laws area, you can even dive deeper and start to link out to the state databases. Before we do that though, fly shops, as I mentioned, an integral part of the app, an integral part of the fly fishing community, and one thing that we want to make sure everybody has access to and knows how to get to the closest fly shops as quickly as possible if they need them. So if you select a river, you'll be able to see all of the closest fly shops to that river. So you can either plan ahead to hit one on the way out there, or again, if you're out on the river and need a fly shop, you can jump in just like that and find the closest one. Stream flows. Let's back out here and select a stream that's going to have some gauges on it. How about the Bitterroot? So, my goodness. Let's see if I just need to stop sharing again, if it'll just magically start working. I promise, when I checked all of this before class, it was all working like a breeze, of course. The fun of live classes. Again, look at that. I stopped sharing and it starts working. Here we go. All right, back to stream gauges. If my screen will share, there we go. All right, so within that stream flows tab, we can see those river gauges pop up. We can also see on the Bitterroot here, specifically, we can start to see that these sections of river are too hot. They are above, well above, down here specifically, above that 68 degrees, where we definitely want to stop fishing for trout, start exploring some of that cooler, colder water, some of those feeder streams, things like that. And this is going to be, again, a really quick, easy way to not only understand what the water is flowing, but at many of those gauges across the country, how warm that water is. So you know whether you should or should not be putting that fish or putting that pressure on those fish. Access laws. Again, as we mentioned earlier, public access points are great and they can be just a spot to kind of kickstart your exploration depending upon your stream bed access laws. Stream bed access laws change from state to state. Some states, you stay below the high water mark, you're good. Some states, as long as you keep your feet wet, you're good. And some states, you just simply can't touch the stream bed on private property. So this is going to be a tab within the app that's going to hopefully give you a pretty quick and easily digestible breakdown of whether you're walking, wading, or you're looking to float that waterway, what those state by state laws are. Again, this is going to be where you can start to break out into those different resources. We'd link out to not only our friends at Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, but also those state regulations and state databases there as well. So just make sure you're double checking all the information and make sure you're doing things right, safely, and responsibly. And then the last tab here is going to be that My Content tab. This is going to be where you can add notes and photos and all that to any of those shapes or markers that will show you how to drop here shortly. But this is one of those places that you can add it to a river specifically. So whether you're looking to create custom content for just one specific marker along a river, or you want to remember notes about an entire river or add photos to that entire river, this is going to be where you can do so for a waterway specifically. All right, I'm going to swipe down that stream card and I'm going to open up these questions because we are cruising through class and I see we've got 8 questions in, so not too crazy. Let's jump in and then we'll wrap things up with a few other things here and then jump back into some more questions. All right, question number 1. Will there be a recording of this webinar? There sure will be. Tomorrow, I'm hoping mid-morning or so, I should be able to get the webinar posted. So whether you had to jump off early tonight or we're flying through things a little bit, I know, to try to make it to those questions. If you're looking to watch things back, or if you want to go back and look at some of the past classes we've had. Last month, we had Mike Dawkins from Worldcast Anglers on to talk about fishing Yellowstone, and it was a great class. And so whether you're just looking to learn more information about fishing and angling out west, that's a great class for you. We've also got streamer classes. We've also got past 101s where we kind of dive into certain different things within each class, right? And we kind of navigate class, how the audience dictates things. So this is a great class to go back and watch, but we've also got plenty of other great classes to take some time to watch as well. So Mark, fishing access points. Some are public, some are private. Are private off limits? So Mark, when you're looking at those fishing access points, they should be, all of those should be general public access points. If you are seeing some of those falling on private sections of water, obviously use your best judgment. We try to pull out any of those false access points if we can. If there are some that you know of, certainly reach out to our team at support at troutroutes.com. We would love to make sure we get some of those cleaned up. But you should be able to start at any of those access points and start working your way from there. Sometimes I like to fly fish for other species. Does the Onyx Fish app include all of the same features as Trout Routes? Great question, Matthew. The Onyx Fish app, which I am fortunate enough to work across both teams these days, is quite different than the Trout Routes app. Trout Routes is focused on moving water. Onyx Fish is focused on lakes specifically at this time. Definitely focused on your conventional anglers as well. It doesn't have all the fly shop callouts. It doesn't have river gauges built into the app. So there's certainly things that separate it and make Onyx Fish a great app and a great tool, but definitely more for your lake-focused, conventional, multi-species angler. I will say, I've used the app plenty to find lakes to chase after bass on the fly rod and things like that. So I wouldn't say that they do the same thing. Unfortunately, they do kind of fill multiple different kind of spots in your toolkit. So I would certainly say giving Onyx Fish a try is a great thing, especially if you like to chase after other species. All right, next one. Is there a way to gather more information on less marked rivers, for example, rivers without stream gauges or much access? Jacob, that's a great question. And I hope that when we showed some of those filtering, when you can filter down to some of those class 2 and class 3 streams, that answered how you can start to dive into those. Unfortunately, if you're not seeing general access points and things like that, a lot of the time it's because many of those smaller streams and things just don't have as much information in databases for us to pull from. So I would say the big tool that will be, or the big thing that will be useful for you as you're exploring some of those smaller waterways is going to be making sure you have that public lands layer on. If we didn't have that public lands layer on, it would be fairly hard to tell. Again, if we're looking at the waterway, we can see specifically those sections of water that have that gray shading is going to denote those sections that flow through and touch at least one side of the water with public land. But once we turn on that public land layer, it really starts to help us understand, okay, where is that access? Is this a state forest that I can access potentially from a different side and hike over and hike into, things like that. So I would definitely say having that public lands layer on is huge. But even if you aren't, you can start searching around where those publicly accessible sections are based upon that shading on the water itself. All right, let's cover two more and we will jump back into things and loop back. All right, Lisa, if you select show, how do you save this as a preference? When I close the app, it goes to default. Lisa, I hope we answered that one with persistent settings. Again, that persistent settings is going to be key when you want to make sure like I've got the app set to what I want it to look like and I don't want it to change when I close it out. Persistent settings and that lock let me go all the way down here since it's right on my screen. Lock filters enabled. Those two, if we jump into those will make sure to help you keep your persistent settings no matter whether you're jumping map mode or you close out the app. Bruce, how can we download a river rather than an area? We're going to jump into those offline maps here very shortly, so we will jump into how to download different sections and how to do that all. A couple different ways to be able to download offline maps, and one is to try to do so by the entire river. Bruce, how do we check for updates? Fairly easy. The easiest way to check for updates is just to jump into the App Store, search for trout routes. If there are any updates, instead of saying open, it will say update. So should be a couple updates coming here in the next couple of weeks. Again, hopefully one of those is that exciting cartography update that we'll be bringing to hopefully all of the devices. One thing I will say, I know I didn't talk much about it tonight, but we are working hard on the Android side of things for you Android users. I know we showed off the stream card tonight, and I know we've told Android users that our new Android developer will be working on bringing them that stream card. But I'll give you some insider information on we are currently developing an even better, more Onyxified stream card that instead of having our Android dev person dive into trying to make Android the same as the iOS app is now, like, all right, let's just move full steam ahead with that larger overhaul. And so we're excited when that river card comes out. It is going to be coming to all platforms. So, all right. I know I said we were going to answer two. I answered three. Brian asked two questions. You can yell at me if you want. All right. Moving on, keeping things going, talking about gauges. I know we talked a little bit about it just a minute ago when we looked at those stream flows within the stream card here. That, of course, is again not working. But we can also find those stream cards on the waterway themselves. It must be an internet access problem tonight. All right, I'm going to stop share again and try to figure that out real quick. Appreciate you all for hanging here with me as everything looks like I have great internet on my end. So I would love. I hope everyone can see me on the video side of things and we're not having any issues with connection there as we get reconnected on the iPad here. All right. Jumping back in. Appreciate that confirmation that you all can see and hear me okay. Cool. So jumping back in, as I mentioned, we can look at stream flows. There's that good old geography tab, hey? See, that's what I was talking about as we can scrub along and see ourselves. Anyways, we won't delve on that for too long. Stream flows, we can see those flows this way. We can jump into charts this way. There's an internet connectivity issue tonight. I'll tell you that. But we can also find those gauges right on the waterway themselves. Click on those gauges and find specifically those gauges that we want to. Again, you can check either this way, or we can check by clicking specifically on the gauge, and we can jump into those graphs. When we jump into the graphs here, one thing I want to call out is going to be that historical median line. This is one of the things that I, again, look at almost every time before I go out. Right now, you can see flows are really low. We can see that that historical median is typically higher. You can see that black line is going to be up there just shy of 1,000 here over Sunday, and it looks like it historically does drop near this time of year, but flows on the Bitterroot are sitting low, and I'm sure all of you who live out there can attest to that. So that's going to be kind of harnessing gauges. Again, most of those gauges are going to be along trout water, but if we do want to make sure we're seeing all of the gauges and not just gauges on trout water, we're going to go to show all, and we'll have access to all of those gauges. And about half of those gauges or so around the country that we've got built into the app also have that temperature. So make sure you are using that feature and checking waterways before that you get out on the water over the next month and a half here as things stay very warm. So, all right, awesome. That kind of jumps into the gauges. Feel free to poke around more over the next couple minutes. And if you've got any questions about the gauges, would love to dive back more into that, but want to keep things moving right into our custom content and offline maps. So within this custom content and offline maps, you're going to access that using the create button on the very bottom of the screen here. And we're going to jump into offline maps as the first one. With this, we can either select a region and go to download it that way. We can name it, or as Dave asked, how do we save a river? We can go ahead and we can select that river, and you can see we can share bookmark, which will save that river to your My Content and your favorite rivers, or we can save it for offline use, and that will go ahead and select just that river, and we can save that and again, name those custom maps, which we then access in that My Content section. We can find all of those custom maps that we save up to those 750 tiles that we're currently limited to. Again, something we're working hard on. Within the My Content section, though, we're not only talking about, let's click off the river, we're not only talking about offline maps, we're talking about those custom markers, custom lines, and custom shapes. So custom markers, we can say we caught a nice fish on this bend and we want to make sure we remember it. We can go there, we can add a name, we can add a marker type, we can add a specific color, we can add photos, we can add notes. And again, just one last reminder on this. Anything you do in the app is not publicly available. It is essentially your own fishing log. You can, I know I personally throw photos, I'll throw information on what the weather was like, what fly I was catching fish on, what the flow was like, all of those different things that I can harness to be able to give myself a leg up if I ever return to that waterway, or if I've got a buddy that's going out there and and I'm nice enough to share information, things like that. That is going to be a tool that you can use without any worry about any of that information going anywhere. So that kind of covers the My Content. The lines are as they kind of speak as themselves. Look at that. Most of the time the lines haven't shown up, which is why I haven't shown it the last couple classes. But you can see we can tap and add, and this is one way to find distance of things. A lot of the times if you're looking for distance from a public access point to the water, things like that, this can be a great tool. Let's see here. We'll try to find an access point that's not along the water, but maybe not. So we'll see. All right, how far as the bird flies are these access points? 1.6 miles from each other. Okay, good to know. So that's going to be one way that you can find distances off of trout streams. That's a pretty good segue right into how do I understand distances on sections of water? That's going to jump us into those three tools along the right-hand side of the screen, and we're going to jump into the middle one that looks like a ruler. That's going to open up the River Miles tab, which using the River Miles tab, we should be able to tap. My goodness, I apologize, everybody. Should be able to tap right into that river. Hmm. Again, a good old network connectivity issue. There we go. And we'll see if it wants to work now. There we go. Of course, when they say closing the app doesn't work, I don't believe them. I never believe them. That's always the first thing to do, right? If the app's doing something weird that you don't like, close it, refresh, and try it again. It almost always works. So with that River Miles tool, we're going to tap anywhere on a trout stream. And if we tap again, we'll be able to really quickly and easily see how far that section is on a specific waterway. And not as the crow flies. That's going to be following along the waterway itself. So you can feel really confident about that, whether you're looking to find how long a section of river might be for walking way, just to understand how much water you can cover realistically in a day, or if you're looking to plan out a float trip. That is a really powerful tool to be able to do that with. All right, the one right above that is going to be that My Location tool. I'm sure, again, for those of you who use maps often enough, and I'm sure most of us do in our everyday life, that is just going to be the tool to be able to take you to where you are on the map. So not only right now, but when you are in the field, if you want to drop a pin exactly where you are on the map, you can utilize that tool no matter whether you have that cell service or not to bring you right to where you are on the map, have that map downloaded offline, hopefully, and then drop your marker, drop your pin, whatever you want to do right there. That's a really, really powerful way to find yourself on the map as you're out on the water. And then the bottom tool on the right-hand side here that we want to talk about quickly is going to be our tutorials. This is going to be a place to, as you're either diving into the app for the first time or as you are exploring the app a year later, you used it last summer, you're just starting to jump back in and you're like, I don't remember how to do anything here. This is going to be a great way to take things past class and learn about the app. So you can click into any of these tutorials and it'll take you through really nice detailed tutorials, helping you understand everything there is to know about the app. Hopefully not everything, because otherwise these classes wouldn't be useful, but enough to at least get you started and get you off on the right path. Hey, so awesome. Well, with that, I am going to switch over to the web maps and we will show things over there before we jump back into questions and wrap things up. Thank you all for sticking with me. I know we have just reached that hour mark. So for those of you who do potentially need to jump off, just know we are going to have this class recorded and we will have everything posted hopefully here by midday tomorrow is the plan. All right. And perfect. Let me know if you can see the web map. Can everybody see the web map? I get maybe just one confirmation in the web chat. Perfect. Awesome. Got that quick confirmation. Thank you, everybody. So on the web map here again, this is going to be a place whether you are planning your trip out or you're back at the campground or whatever it might be because that you're getting rained out and you want to start looking around for some potential new options. I love using the screen real estate and the size of the desktop app. They function very similarly. The filtering is slightly different. We are working on that. But in terms of functionality, this is going to be a really great place to start. You can still have all of your functionality of your gauges, all of that good information that you want. And clicking around, you're going to have your stream card as well. You still have all of those tabs, stream cards, all that good stuff. So I just wanted to call this out. Before that, we jump into those questions, as again, a lot of the times we find that people don't even know that the web map exists and sometimes forget about it. So just wanted to call that out. If you are a pro member, you should have no issue with your pro. And if you are a single state member, you won't be able to sign up for a single state through the web, but you will be able to access your single state membership on the web. So hopefully no worries there. All right, and with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and jump back into the remaining questions that we have. All right, let's see here. Ryan, are they going to extend the number of maps you can download? Tiles at 750 is very limiting compared to Onyx and other apps. Ryan, yeah, it's a great call out. Right now, we are at unfortunately the helm of the Mapbox world. That is our base map that we use on the Trout Routes platform. We are currently working hard to re-platform ourselves to the Onyx platform, which for those of you who don't know is unlimited map tiles. So we are working hard as we all do understand. I get frustrated at times as well when I have to go in and delete maps and maintain those offline maps a little bit more than I would particularly like to. So it is certainly something that 750 is something that we're working hard to remove that restriction, but it is going to entail us having to re-platform over to the Onyx side of things, which obviously takes quite a bit of work. So yes, soon. Awesome. Sean, how do you bring up a stream card? Hopefully this was answered, but if not, any time that you click on any of those highlighted waterways, that's going to bring up the stream card. Again, most of the time you might not know what these river names are, but that stream card is going to be the first place to start learning about the name of the river and all of that deeper information that comes with the stream card. And that should happen, that should populate anytime that you click on any of those highlighted waterways. John, can you go through the 3D action again? Yeah, absolutely. Let me go ahead and share the iPad once more. All right, so we wait for the iPad here. Perfect. All right, so to turn on 3D maps, first of all, jump into that map layers, base map. Right above that is going to be your 3D maps. We can pinch and zoom per normal, but if we want to change that angle so that we can really start to see that 3D, we're going to use two fingers. This again is going to be where that two finger swipe comes in. So we're going to take two fingers, we're going to press both of them on the screen at the same time, and we are going to move our fingers up the screen. And that's going to take us down. And if we do that two finger press and move our fingers down the screen, that's going to take us to that overhead view. From there, we can obviously spin ourselves. We can slightly change the angle if we want. We can zoom in, we can zoom out. We can change those base maps to start looking at it via satellite, all different types of really powerful information that we can potentially start to learn. You can start to see some of those trails even, some really cool information that way as well. Definitely one reason to check out not only the roads base map, but also that topo and that satellite as well. All right, awesome. Mike, handicap access. This is a great question. This is one that we've gotten quite a few times of trying to understand what access points are handicap access points, or at least handicap friendly. And this is one of those things that as we are diving into this new stream card, we're trying to get much more detailed with the access type that not only each river has, but that specific locations have as well. So we're hoping to be able to bring some more of that type of information and that type of data to users with that stream card update that should be coming here later in the year. Mark was talking specifically, this is back to the access, back to bridge access. Private, he's in Missouri. We don't have a lot of trout waters here, but he sees that access points quite often on the app. Yeah, so bridge access is going to be, again, depending on state to state. Sometimes bridges are access points, sometimes they are not. I would love to know specifically. We can take this offline. If you want to email me, you can get a hold of me at hello@troutroutes.com, Mark. That would be a great way to continue this conversation. But I did mention as we click onto those streams, I should have mentioned this earlier, we do have those bridge icons shown. You can see any of those orange icons are going to be one of my favorite things that I didn't even talk about. And that's going to be our street view icons here, which gives you really quick, easy access to understand what it might look like when you get to that access point. When it comes to understanding whether those bridges are private or public, that is going to start. Um, you can start to understand that if you click on those bridges, you can see this is bridge access public. This is going to be because that there's that public section of water right there, and it looks like it bumps right up to that. Other sections, let's see if we can find potentially a private bridge. There we go. So if we click on this bridge icon, you can see it's going to help you understand that that bridge access point is a private access bridge. Hopefully that answers your question again. If not, feel free to reach out to me at hello@troutroutes.com, and I would love to chat a little bit more, make sure we've got everything set right and that you're seeing everything the right way so that we can keep you safe and responsible out there. Awesome. Frank, some know public access areas on West Canada Creek and West Osable River in New York are not showing on Trout Route's guide layer. They used to show up. Did I use the wrong filter? That's a great question, Frank. Again, I think this might be a case of one where if things are not showing up that they used to be, there's either potentially some false access points that we pulled out, maybe pulled out a few false access points. But I would love to learn more about this specific case. If you want to reach out to me at hello@troutroutes.com. And again, I would love to dive in more there. I'm gonna type in that email address just as a reply to your comments so that you can make sure you get a hold of me and we can discuss further. Jacob Bailey, are there any ways to see stream width, mostly for exploring new areas to have ideas on what to throw and rods to bring? Jacob, you'll be excited to hear that this is something that our cartography team has taken into account. So not only showing streams, showing some of our class one and gold medal streams in a larger, easier to digest way, but beyond that, we are looking to understand how can we show on the map specifically, when you're looking at it at this view, how can we start to help users understand which of these waterways are bigger and wider than others? So I think that that should hopefully start to tackle that. And I agree. I think it would be really nice to be able to understand, okay, there's two, three gold medal streams within this section that I'm seeing. How do they differ in size? What should I be throwing? What should I be bringing if I want to fish all three? Do I need multiple different rods to fish all three? Things like that. So awesome, awesome question, Jacob, and something that we have on the cartography team. They've been diving into and have come up with some pretty cool, hopefully pretty cool ways to start to digest some of that information. Brian, are they working on rotation? So map changes as I change phone. Makes it much easier to just save section of river I want for offline use. I think you're specifically talking about those offline maps. And I will say, Brian, the one thing with the offline maps that you do want to make sure is that you do beforehand go out, before you go out, you make sure that all of those offline maps are saved. I would go into that My Content section, just check those sections of offline maps that you have downloaded. And if you're not seeing the section you want, obviously it's a fairly quick and easy, let me get back to some trout water here. Fairly quick and easy way to be able to do so. One of the things I will call out here quickly is as you go to download those maps, you want to make sure you are saving them with the base map intended. If you want both the roads base map and the satellite base map while you are out on the water, you need to save the same section with both base maps. So I'll tell people all the time, I'll select the section I want, save it, I won't go through all that, and then I'll go ahead, won't even move the map. I'll go ahead and select that base map I want, save it, done. Won't even worry about the fact. And now I know no matter whether I toggle between those two different map modes, I'll still have all of that information right there at my fingertips offline. Frank, I shut down the app and then the shaded areas on those rivers showed up. Good, I'm glad to hear that. Again, you know, we try to keep things as bug free as possible, but especially as we're starting to do more updates and starting to try to go a little bit deeper, certain things can happen, and it also, that's just technology the way it works. So it's always a good check to just close the app, try to redo the same thing again. If you are still having issues, definitely reach out to our team and we can investigate further. David Clark, can you link to dam schedule on tailwaters? It's a great idea. I think that's something we haven't necessarily ever explored. So it's certainly something I am going to write down in my notes for class. Or dam schedules. I think it's one of those things where if we can get the database, if we can get access to it, it should hopefully be something we can implement, even if it's just dropping a link into some of those waterways that have tailwaters on them, dropping a link somewhere in there to some of those dam schedules, if we have access to them. So I love that idea. I think, again, just another way to keep people safe, keep people informed, and help people know what they might be looking at before that they go out to the water. So awesome. Well, with that, we've made it through all the questions. Feel like we've done pretty well for it just being myself. I appreciate you all hanging out with me here tonight. And we've had an awesome class. I feel like hopefully you are all leaving armed to be able to tackle some new water this weekend, next month, wherever it might be. I know I personally will be out in the panhandle of Idaho here in the next couple of weeks, and I am stoked to try to get away from some of those larger waterways, making sure I'm checking those gauges and start exploring some of those class 2 and class 3 streams, which I know we will be talking more about next month, as I think we're going to try to do a blue line focused masterclass. So I know a lot of people have been asking for a masterclass specifically diving into how to explore smaller streams using the Trout Routes app. And we are going to give the people what they want. We're going to do a class all about exploring small streams next month. So hopefully you join us for that one. Hopefully you have a fantastic rest of your July. The fishing's getting tough, but it also is fantastic if you can get into them. So don't hesitate to get out and explore some new water and do so safely and responsibly using the app. Thank you all. We will see you next time.